Hey guys, what's going on? Hermdo back with you. And today we're talking Bernie. Let's get into it. Drawing huge crowds, Bernie Sanders emerges as the leader of the anti-Trump resistance. Bernie Sanders is standing alone in the back of a pickup truck shouting into a bullhorn. He's facing several hundred ecstatic voters huddled outside a suburban Detroit high school. The group that did not fit inside the school's gym or two overflow rooms. The crowd screams in delight when he tells them that a combined total of 9,000 people had shown up for the rally. What all this tells me, it's not just in Michigan or in Vermont. The people of this country will not allow us to move towards oligarchy. They will not allow Trump to take us into authoritarianism. Sanders yelled, "We're prepared to fight. We're prepared to win." 83 years old, Sanders is not running for president again, but the stooped and silver-haired Democrat socialist has emerged as a leader of the resistance to Donald Trump's second presidency, in tearing into Trump's seizure of power and warning about the consequences of firing tens of thousands of government workers. Sanders is bucking the wishes of those who want the Democrats to focus on the price of eggs or to roll over and play dead. For now, Sanders stands alone as the only elected progressive willing to mount a national campaign to harness the fear and anger of the sprawling anti-Trump movement. He drew a crowd of 4,000 in Kenosha, Wisconsin on Friday night. He faced another 2,600 or so the next morning, a few hours away, in Altoona, Wisconsin, a town of less than 10,000 residents. And this crowd of 9,000 suburban Detroit exceeded his own team's expectations by design. Each stop was in a swing U.S. House district represented by a Republican. Sanders, who was just elected to his fourth Senate term from Vermont, considered that this is not the role he expected to play at this stage of his career. In fact, his team intentionally waited in the early weeks of the Trump presidency to launch what they are now calling the Stop Oligarchy Tour, see if high-profile Democrat would fill the leadership void. Instead, Sanders, who's not a Democrat himself despite allying with Senate Democrats and running twice for the party's presidential nomination, has people wondering if he's considering another White House bid. I tone down that kind of talk. No offense to Bernie, but come on, he's going to be 87 in 2028. But anyways, here's a Bernie TikTok for you. Let's see what he's talking about.
What is it like living paycheck to paycheck? Who wants to... hold on, one at a time. I can't... Yes.
Terrible.
It's just the question I have overall I was going to do a video talking about some concerns I had about the Democrat leadership and the Democrat Party and kind of the leftist project as a whole Bernie Sanders is pretty much like the de facto face of the party still, but he's in his early 80s. He's not going to be around forever. What comes after Bernie? He's still an inspirational figure. People still rally around him. What he says resonates with people. And I think it's a good message for the Democrats to adopt going forward, focusing on class issues, focusing on fiscal policy, focusing on, the labor market and whatnot. But who else in the Democrat Party really is touting this kind of thing? That's what, I can't think of any off the top of my head. If you're more tuned into this, you can let me know. I want to have a discussion about this. But let's get into what Bernie Sanders has to say here.
Well, terrible, all right? Yes. Hungry? Hunger. All right, let me get some hands back there. Be loud. We got a hand there. Okay, ma'am.
Stressful.
Stressful. Stay on that issue, sir.
Not sure if you're going to be able to keep the heat on.
You're not sure if you're going to be able to keep the heat on. Yes, ma'am. Trying to find a way to plan a meal for until your next paycheck comes. Ma'am?
Forget about buying shoes and clothes for your kids. You're lucky.
People got to understand, there's this idea, and class, I think, supersedes a lot of other social issues. I'm not saying that aren't other things we should be focusing on or putting, effort into correcting, but with the class issues, these people are your neighbors. You see these people every day. If you live in a low-income area, if you work around low-income people, if you have friends who are struggling, you've heard tons of stories like this. I was recording a video a few days ago. My boss texted me asking me if I could Venmo him $20. It's just one of those things. Everybody is broke. Everybody's trying to stretch that paycheck. My paycheck was a little thin this week. I took some time off work, but otherwise, sometimes I'm doing good. Sometimes, man, I'm really struggling. You blow through your paycheck, paying all these bills, paying all this debt. It's been said millions of times before, countless times before. But this is something millions of Americans have to deal with. And a lot of people don't want to contend with this. A lot of people just pretend it isn't happening. Oh, America's great. If you're struggling, you're stupid. You know, it's just so obnoxious and out of touch. But that's why Bernie's messaging is resonating so well with people. But let's get in more into this video.
Make ends meet paying bills.
Forget about buying shoes and clothes for your kids. Ma'am?
Skipping doctor's visits.
Skipping doctor's visits. Okay, I see a hand back there, sir. Yeah.
I'm scared the world's gonna fall apart.
Fear that your world is going to fall apart, sir.
Am I getting glasses or am I getting them for my kid?
Am I getting glasses or can I get them for my kids? Sir.
Can't plan for the future.
Can't plan for the future.
That's a big one. You don't know what the future is going to bring. I made some videos about this, talked about like the possible recession, what Gen Z and millennials have to face going forward. What's the next 10 years going to be like? What's the party going to be like? What are the political parties going to be like? Is MAGA going to be the law of the land in 2028? We're looking here. Who can oppose? You know, it's going to be J.D. Vance or maybe Ron DeSantis or God knows who else. I think the MAGA thing, it's got legs. I know his approval's going down right now, but I still think he's got enough support in certain areas. But some people will always carry water for Trump. That's the thing. Of course, he could fuck things up, lose the 2026 midterms. We have gridlock for 2 years, and then God knows who wins the 2028 election. Who knows? Who's the Democrat Party putting up? Some people, some polling after the election suggested Kamala's still the front runner by like 40%. That kind of makes me nervous. Kind of makes me feel like people aren't really learning anything. But, you know, we'll talk more about that later. But getting more into this, it's just like, what's the plan for the future? Are we going to go through a recession? Am I going to be able to afford a home at any point? Am I going to be able to live by myself? Am I going to be able to pay for my medications? What's the deal here? You know, my bills are going up too. My healthcare premium just went up $70. It sucks. It sucks, man. But things are going back up. I know there's some indicators that inflation might be tailing off again, but I don't know, man. It doesn't feel like it.
Hand back there, sir.
Psychological warfare.
Okay, psychological warfare. Yes.
That is how you feel, you know, with the psychological thing. You feel like you're being psyoped constantly. You feel like there's always some force out to get you. I know it sounds like paranoid shit. I don't want to like repeat any kind of like right-wing talking points here, but you do feel like it's a war on your sanity, on your mental health. I was talking to one of my counselors a couple days ago, and just like telling him, you know, just all this stress being caused around Trump, around the uncertainty of the future, everything's expensive. You feel like the world is out to get you in a way. I don't want to sound paranoid or anything like that, but some days you just feel like, man, what the fuck is going on? All this uncertainty, all this just basically chaos going on, unfolding. There's always something happening. There's always something going on. You feel hyper aware of this kind of shit, you know, but it's just like, you feel like a war is being waged on your mind. You feel like you're being conditioned to believe like certain things by all these ideologues. It drives you up the wall, but enough editorializing from me.
You make impossible decisions for your family.
You make impossible decisions for your family, sir.
General insecurity.
General insecurity. Raise your hand. What is it like living paycheck to paycheck? Who wants to? All right, hold on. One at a time.
Okay. We get into that. Oh, baby. Let's see what we have to say about this. Sold out crowds in red districts. It's just, you want to reach across the, I don't know, Tim Walz has a tour now. He's going around. He's doing his own thing here. I don't know if it's part of Bernie's thing, but Tim Walz is going around trying to appeal to voters in red districts. A lot of stress. There's a big groundswell of a lot of Trump voters who feel betrayed by him. And it's early in the administration. I don't know what's going to happen, but it definitely seems like we're headed towards a cliff, at least at this point in time. I felt this way before. A lot of times it turned out to be nothing. I don't know. Is this going to be any different? We'll see. But there's a lot of disillusion around Trump. A lot of people feel screwed over by him. And that's a big problem for the Republicans, because MAGA is pretty much the face of the party. If MAGA doesn't work, then they're fucked. They're fucked, essentially. And I don't know. But the thing is, if Democrats, it's just not being Trump isn't enough. Just waiting for Trump to fuck up so you can swoop in and basically not change anything that led to the rise of Trump. That's just going to end up, it's just going to be more problems down the road. But let's get into this. Bernie Sanders had some words for Elon Musk. This is his Twitter account. Let's see what he has to say about this.
Look, I know it's really, really hard to keep up with all the craziness here in Washington, D.C. Bottom line, Musk and Trump are going after Social Security. They're cutting thousands of jobs at the Social Security Administration. They're going after Medicaid. They want to cut Medicaid by over $800 billion. That means millions of kids are going to lose their health insurance.
Cutting healthcare. Oh, sorry. They're cutting like healthcare. They're cutting like food assistance programs. They're cutting like school lunches. They're cutting all this stuff. USAID's gone. All these programs that people depend on. Elon Musk determines that they're just a waste of money, and the world's richest man decides like, hey, programs that people depend on, that's just a useless expenditure. We're just going to start cutting stuff willy-nilly. You don't need me to tell you this. You've been seeing this going on, but at least Bernie's saying something about it.
It means that if your mom or dad is in a nursing home, they're going to be in trouble because 2/3 of people in nursing homes get their money from Medicaid. They're going after the Veterans Administration. They want to cut over 80,000 workers at the VA, meaning our veterans will get deteriorating healthcare service. They're going after public education, you name it. Now, why do they want to cut all of these programs that are so important to the working class of this country? And the answer is very simple. They want to give massive tax breaks to the richest people in America. In their program, they give over.
It's the same thing. It's a continuation of the 2017 tax cuts that only benefited like the 1%, and everybody else got the short end of the stick. It's just a big, oh God, we're doing this. Everything old is new again. We're doing the same shit over again.
$1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. So this is the Robin Hood proposal in reverse. They're taking from the poor and working families, giving to the very, very rich. Just last weekend, I was in Wisconsin, Michigan. We did a bunch of rallies. We had over 9,000 people coming out in Warren, Michigan. That's really quite unbelievable for a non-political campaign. And what all of that tells me is the American people are sick and tired of Mr. Musk and the billionaire class and the oligarchs taking over our government. So I believe that if we stand together, if we fight back, we can defeat Trumpism. We can stop what they're doing, and we can move this country in a very different direction. But we can't do it unless we're all involved. So stand up, fight back. Let's go forward together. Thanks very much.
I know some people have issues with Bernie for basically towing the party line, like after he was defeated or basically screwed over by the DNC in 2016 and 2020. And he kind of just said people, all the money they donated to him, just like, sorry, vote for the establishment, I guess. That's a thing. Bernie Sanders was seen as kind of weak. It's by certain people, he's an inspiring figure in a lot of ways. Maybe you could say he's got a few weaknesses here and there. Would he have made a good president? I don't know. But I have to believe in some regard, we'd be better off if Bernie Sanders had gotten in, whatever flaws the guy might have. I know a lot of leftists don't like the guy. I know a lot of dudes, but some right-wingers I know are coming around on him. It's kind of interesting to see because he speaks to what people want to hear. He actually, I feel like nobody else is really talking about this or taking this shit seriously, besides just kind of passing off like your average, like, aphorisms about like, we hear you, we know what's going on, we know times are tough, but it's like, it feels like there's some level of like genuine like empathy coming from Bernie Sanders. But let's get into this. This is a Mike Figueredo video. I wanted to get to a couple points in this video. Now they're talking about this guy basically standing up to Tom Homan.
Bernie's politics are the way forward and you're serious about that, allow me to introduce you to the next iteration of this style of politics.
Zoran Mamdani. Sorry, I couldn't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was going toe-to-toe with the border czar Tom Homan. Yeah, it's getting pretty intense, talking about the deportations taking place, talking about Mahmoud Khalil being detained and having his citizenship status revoked, and basically the U.S. government again being at the beck and call of Zionism.
How many more New Yorkers will you detain? How many more New Yorkers without trial? Do you believe in the First Amendment? Do you believe in the First Amendment, Tom Homan?
When we asked Tom Homan, all he had to answer for that cruelty was a smirk. Because there is no answer for taking a man from his pregnant wife, who is due to deliver their newborn child in a month, from their Columbia University apartment, a day after that same man, Mahmoud Khalil, wrote to Columbia University and said he feared for his life. The cowardice that is on display across our city and our state is unacceptable.
Yeah, it's a big mess. It's a big mess, and you know, people are fucking furious. I don't know how else to describe it. People, this is terrifying. I made a video about this, didn't get too many views. I was kind of disappointed, but this is a seriously, you know, frightening aspect here. How it relates to like Bernie Sanders. You know, we need more figures to go out there and stand up for the little guy, to go out there and be passionate and to call this bullshit out. And a lot of younger Democrat Party members, a lot of these guys, AOC, been kind of disappointing. She's had some controversy stoking up. I know a lot of people still see her as an inspiring figure. I don't dislike her, but, you know, a few times I've really questioned her, not her competence, but just like maybe how much she really believes in it. Is she an authentic person? But this seems a lot more authentic. You know, Zoran Mamdani seems to at least have some passion here behind his words. That's what we want to see, just passion. You know, Bernie, you can see when he talks, he's a passionate guy. Would it be like, but like I said about like other younger Democrat officials and whatnot, it's just like they want to compromise a lot. You hear a lot about moving back towards the center, compromising on immigration and trans rights and whatnot too. I know that upsets a lot of leftists, but you know, especially the Palestine situation. You know, there's a lot of Democrats, I did a video about this too, where a lot of them are walking in lockstep with Israel and AIPAC. It's disturbing, it's disgusting, and it does not play well with the younger generation of voters. So it's kind of good to see this from Zoran. But anyways, here's what PodSave had to say about it.
And it doesn't really matter where you land politically within the Democratic Party's base. Most voters in this bloc understand that we need politicians who stand for something. And I get the sense that the Pod Save bros now feel the same way. At least that's what I took away from their commentary about Bernie Sanders.
But also good for Bernie for filling a space and like giving people a place to go to get excited and fired up.
Well,
I think that's
in
great.
House districts that Republicans won by only a few votes.
And more Democrats should be doing that.
Absolutely.
Good.
Whether you like Bernie's politics or not, here's a guy who has not changed anything about himself and doesn't want to, doesn't care how you feel about it, is completely comfortable in his own skin, and he's going around drawing these big crowds, just old traditional style. Just go and do a rally, and you talk to people, and everyone's like, "This is great." He didn't figure.
You know, whatever Democrat leadership is, I know there was mentioned like there's kind of a void of leadership in the Democrat Party. When you think of Democrat Party leadership, who do you really think about? More people seem to think, hey, it's Bernie Sanders. It's, you know, Bernie or nobody. But how do we basically going forward, can other Democrats adopt these strategies? Can they stop trying to compromise with Republicans? Stop trying to be, you know, we're going to need some bipartisan support, obviously, to push some bills through and whatnot. But as far as some of this other kind of compromises go, can we have an uncompromising young Democrat, basically vanguard moving forward? And I think Bernie is setting the stage for that.
Figure out like the TikTok trend. He didn't figure out exactly how to like do an explainer video that's
like,
vertical video.
He's not like, we got to stop the oligarchy. No cap.
So that right there tells me that they understand that Bernie's politics, that's the way forward. So this is why I think that you should support candidates like Mamdani, because he is charting this path that Bernie Sanders has been charting for decades. Now,
okay, we got one more segment here. He does a Bernie interview where he's talking about like campaign financing and whatnot. Let's get into this.
Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer and Ken Martin. Unlike most politicians, Bernie Sanders isn't doing what he does to get ahead. He's not doing the Fight the Oligarchy tour because there's something to be gained by it. He's too old to run for president, and he's not getting paid to do this, I'm sure. He's doing it because he's as desperate as we are to stop fascism. That is what we want. We want politicians to genuinely care. And he is giving Americans one more chance to try to understand that there is power in numbers and there's value in working class solidarity. And he explained this in that same interview.
This is Mike Figueredo, by the way. A good channel. Definitely give him a subscribe. You know, I'm going to subscribe to him right now. Go ahead. Follow my lead.
I want to highlight that because what he says is very important.
Because of the corrupt campaign finance system. If some Republican today stands up and says, you know what? I am not going to cut Medicaid in my district to give tax breaks to billionaires. You know what happens? The next day, Musk says, guess what, fella? We're going to primary you. I got endless amounts of money. You're in trouble. These guys are scared to death. They're scared to death.
Yeah, Trump just primaried Thomas Massey. However you feel about Thomas Massey, the guy took absolutely no money from AIPAC, has been a pretty strong critic of Israel and of Republican leadership, and Trump doesn't like him, so he's primarying the guy. A lot of other Republicans were rallying behind Massey. Trump is scared of this shit. Musk is scared of this shit. You know, especially coming from the right. You know, I don't know about like coalition building or whatnot, but, you know, Bernie explains this pretty well. You know, going forward, you know, what can we do? Because it seems like we know the left despises Trump, but there's a lot of anti-Trump sentiment coming from the right as well. A lot of people, well, there's some people that don't think he's racist enough, of course. There's like a contingent of right-wingers that believe that. But there's a lot of Republicans, a lot of voters who feel tired of his shit. Can you like reach across the aisle to them? Can you like maybe get some congressional support? I don't know. But I think this is how you try to mitigate the damage from Trump in the best way you can, especially damage from Musk as well. You know, there has to be some kind of bipartisanship going forward. But, you know, I don't know if is that realistic? You know, let's get into more of this.
Death of Musk. But we're going to have to force them to make a choice. They can be scared to death of Musk, or they can be scared to death of their own constituents. That's the choice we're going to give them.
And that right there is a crucial message. He also pointed out at a different point in the interview that fascists like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they want you to become demoralized. They want you to feel hopeless because when you stop resisting, that's when they really win. That makes their jobs easier. But what we have to do right now is recalibrate. Right now, since money buys elections, politicians are more responsive to their donors than they are to voters. So Bernie is trying the best that he can to change that dynamic, even if it might be too late. And thankfully, more Democrats who actually do care are following his lead. That includes individuals like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is also planning to go to red districts to speak directly to the constituents of Republican members of Congress to offer them an alternative vision for the country. Now, this is what you have to do to cultivate working class solidarity among working people. It's something that works. And do you want to know how I know that it works? Because Fox News is already talking about this strategy, and they're trying to throw a wrench in their plans to bring working class people together. For example, Greg Gutfeld, he said that he doesn't know how somebody like AOC could even have a...
Well, just a quick aside on that. I'm all for bringing... Look, you want to bring more Trump voters, more disillusioned MAGA people over to your side. What's, like, the best way to go about that? Because some stuff that's part of, like, the leftist platform does not go over well with like right aligned voters, with like Trump voters and stuff like that. Certain things, the immigration issue, LGBT issues surrounding like critiquing religion or like secularism, that stuff, Trump people don't like that kind of stuff. I'm not saying we have to compromise on this kind of thing, but I don't know. I mean, look, I don't know really what the issue is, but hey, if you have any ideas about how to reach across the aisle, to bring in some Trump people to try to get them to understand, like working class people, like proletariat people, basically, try to get them to understand these billionaire oligarchs, the Bezoses, the Musks, the Zuckerbergs, don't give a fuck about them. Just because they make all these appeals to like anti-wokeness. Oh, we're slashing DEI, we're getting rid of pronouns and stuff. That doesn't mean shit. You got to be made to understand that kind of stuff. So let's see what these wonderful people at Fox News have to say.
Conversation with Republicans because of her hyperfixation on identity politics. Listen to what he says.
Curious how you can have this fabled, honest conversation liberals always talk about when each conversation is terminated with those load-bearing phrases like racism, xenophobia, transphobia, sexist. How can you have a conversation? Let's say you go to a Republican area and you talk about their resistance to trans in sports. Where does that conversation lead? Do you immediately say what you always say? That's transphobic? Because that's not where the conversation ends. That's where it starts. It's not transphobic. It's common sense. Can't you?
This thing. Now, I don't like Gutfeld, but I don't think, look, I'm not saying he's right about transgender people, but when talking with like Trump voters, like right-wing people, like I said before, these trans issues, that's a sticking point for them. A lot of them are virulently anti-trans. That's the thing. Let's see what Mike has to say about this. Is there a better way to like market these ideas to people, or at least if nothing else, to get like Trump voters to kind of see trans people and LGBT people in general as human?
You have that. The problem for the Dems is that whether it's border, DEI, or crime, the social justice lingo begins and ends with racist, 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 racist.
And this is a classic divide and conquer strategy that so many Democrats fall for. I'm looking at you, Greasy Gavin. Republicans are trying to bait Democrats into throwing their own constituents under a bus in order to debate them on their own terms. It's a pretty effective strategy, and I want to show you what I mean. So the ACLU has tracked more than 500 anti-LGBTQ plus bills across the country just in the 2025 legislative session alone. And when we respond by defending queer people from the erosion of their civil rights, the right subsequently accuses us of being obsessed with LGBTQ issues to the detriment of other issues, especially kitchen table issues. So they manufactured this situation where if Democrats stand down and let Republicans target this minority who's vulnerable, well, they piss off their base who rightfully feels abandoned, who expects more, who expects to be defended since they support this party. But if Democrats respond and they defend LGBTQ plus people from these attacks, well, then that's just proof that they care more about they/them than you and I, as the Trump ad puts it. Like they're directly trying to pit working class people against each other. They're trying to create a lose-lose situation for Democrats. They're forcing Democrats to constantly play defense. And Democrats fall for it way too much. But the goal here is to get regular people to think that politics is a zero-sum game and that every second Democrats spend defending trans rights is a second that they could have spent defending working-class cis people. And this isn't the only group that they target, by the way. I mean, during the Reagan era, he would conjure up images of welfare queens, i.e. black single mothers, and claim that they're not working and they're sucking up all the resources that you're paying for with your tax dollars. And it was an effective tactic to get white people mad at black people. This is what they have always done. They benefit from bigotry and racism and xenophobia and transphobia and homophobia and all the phobias and isms. The goal is to pit working class people against each other and have them fight each other so that way they never see that their struggles are interconnected. Because if we're fighting each other, then nobody's going to pay attention to the people at the top robbing us blind.
He's right about that. Honestly. It's a good point. With these social issues, they infest everything. because these like fear-mongering assholes make it seem like all these people in this group are out to get another group. One group that gets cared about more than another group. Basically, and I think some leftists, how can I phrase this? Basically just like, sometimes I hear one of the critiques of the left, I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with it, but it's just like, they care more about this group. Like Mike was saying, some leftists care more about this group than they do care about like regular cis people. That's something, I think we need to be made to understand, look, trans people getting healthcare, they're a tiny portion of the population. I think they're less than 1% of the population. A couple million people getting healthcare. That's not something I take issue with at all. There are bigger things at play. We got to get people basically to see the big picture, understand, look, trans people are under attack in a lot of ways, and working class people are under attack in a lot of ways. And it's usually the same people, these right-wing billionaire oligarchs coming after us. And, we need to focus, basically, we're going to have to like make a broader coalition where it's like everybody, I believe in my heart that being the richest, most powerful country in the world allows us to be able to care for everybody, every group of people, regardless of race, class, gender, religion, what have you. And we can build a broad-based coalition of this. And some leftists and some right-wingers argue about this as well. They think only this group should be protected. This group is more important than the other group. I hear it from both sides. I'm not accusing Mike of doing this, of course. He brought up some excellent points. But basically, like the Democrat, I think the left, or just overall, whatever anti-Trump coalition you want to build, or whatever anti-oligarch coalition you want to build, should focus on that. Should focus on making, if you want this government basically, we need massive institutional changes that start based from the bottom up and the top down. And we need to reform things so that people in America can get what they need, can have access to the things they need, food, housing, healthcare, whatnot. The fact we're pitted against each other is terrible, and that's how these people divide us. And what Mike said was very true. There's some resistance to it here and there. Some people, we're going to all have to start coming to the table. I had to get rid of some of my biases. I had some bigoted views. I had to see past that. I'm still working on getting past that kind of stuff, but it's something vital because we're in like uncharted territory here. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Like the guy said before, with the uncertainty, with all this stuff. But this is a huge issue, needs to be tackled. But yeah, I tell you what, I thought, Bernie had some very good things to say. I thought Mike had some good things to say, and I know I was critical of AOC, but I know people were mad at her. I think she didn't sign a bill to it was like some bill about Mahmoud Khalil's release or something, and she didn't sign it allegedly. A lot of people see her as kind of being a Biden toady. I don't think that's necessarily fair, but let's move beyond that. That petty quibbling shit isn't important. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you're willing to build a coalition, if you're willing to see beyond things, some stuff, there's going to be compromise going forward. Well, maybe I'll talk about that in a later video, but as far as like the big project of getting these assholes out of power, or at least restoring some power to the people, that's something we should be focused on going forward. But that's all I got to say to you guys. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Little.